Hello friends, this is the start of a new video series, How to Parse. Really, it's going to be about how to maximize your damage, how to really show up on those meters in Raid specifically. I'm going to start off with Heroic Sylvanas, and this is a fight that Ellie Shaman can really hold its own on. We're quite strong on Heroic Sylvanas, and even better on Mythic due to the chains spawning in tight groups rather than spread out. I wanted to start this series off with Mythic guides, but unfortunately my guild is on break until 9.2 and I don't have a good way to record Mythic kills right now on my Shaman. Hopefully we'll go back and do a few more clears in the next couple weeks before the new patch comes out and I can get some footage then. But for now, let's get to it. Whether you're just looking to perform better and bump those logs up a notch, or you need a bit more damage to finish off your AOTC Heroic Sylv, this is the video for you if you're an Ellie Shaman. To start off, let's go over talents and legendary options. You can do this fight with either our AoE or single target legendaries, but I think Windspeaker's single target setup is slightly better, not only for overall damage, but if you're still progging this boss on Heroic, then that's 100% what you should run. If you're here and you're doing it on Mythic, run Echoes of the Great Sundering 100%. Now, talent-wise, you're going to take our standard single-target talents regardless of which legendary you're running. If we play Echoes on Heroic, and of course we play it on Mythic, you play this fight in a hybrid style of single-target talents and AoE legendary. This will help you maximize boss damage while still being able to use Ellie Shaman's strong AoE kit to pump on both adds and chains. And pumping on both adds and chains is where we get our parse from. For Soulbind, you're going to want to run Karain. Obviously, this requires you to be Night Fae, but Chains allow you to proc First Strike for extra crit in P1, and First Strike as well as Wild Hunt stratagems increase DPS at the end of mobs are very strong during platforms in P2. Unfortunately, the Soulbind option doesn't offer much in P3, but it's still by far and away the best option. And now, gear-wise, you may normally be running Ruby, PvP Badge, or another on-use trinket that works pretty well for Ellie Shaman, but on Sylvanas in particular, those are much weaker than normal. Ruby doesn't have the execute in order to get the massive numbers of crit, and for that reason, I recommend running double passive trinkets. I use Ocular Gland from Eye of the Jailer, and then either Changeling from Miss or Necromantic Tome from KT as my second trinket. Outside of that, sim your gear, raidbots.com, go use it. So this parse ended up being a 97. I went with kind of standard opener here, pre-popped my Stormkeeper, pre-popped my Fire Ellie, got my Master of the Elements buff up, and then used it on Fade Transfusion, got Master of the Elements buff on each of my Stormkeeper Lightning Bolts, and then we'll just go ahead, standard rotation, Ice Fury, Blasting, trying to proc Master of the Elements on as many things as I can. When I looked back at the logs, timing-wise, I should have actually held my Stormkeeper for this first set of chains, used the Stormkeeper to do big Chain Lightning AoE on them, and then that would have actually lined up, so I used 2 Stormkeepers in P1, one on the first set of chains, and then the second one would have come up during the intermission chains. This obviously depends on your group's timing. What you're going to have to do is go look at a log for your P1 and look at the timing of when you're getting domination arrows, so look at damage to domination arrows, and the distance between those, figure out what the best number of arrows you can hit, like the most number of times you can line up Stormkeeper with domination arrows. For me, I ended up doing this wrong. This was, I think, a 1 pull kill for this group, so I wasn't sure kind of what our timings would be, so I just went ahead, did the safe option, and sent it on pull. You can see I hold the next Stormkeeper here for these chains, and that's definitely the play. When you're running Windspeaker's setup, the chains is where your AoE is going to come from. You can see the first strike procs. Make sure to use Master of the Elements before your Stormkeeper Chain Lightning. Get that 20% damage buff on the Chain Lightning onto those chains. Really helps you maximize that unethical pad damage that you're looking for if you want to parse. So going through rest of P1, it's pretty standard stuff here. Master of the Elements buff everything I can. Watch your feet. Try to be casting as much as you possibly can. One of the biggest damage losses is going to be not following your ABCs and not always be casting. I get a good lineup here with Chaos Brain proccing into the intermission, so I want to get my damage out in the intermission. Unfortunately, Stormkeeper's not up, so this is just going to be dropping an Earthquake, buffing it with Master of the Elements. Spirit Walker's Grace is great in the intermission to be able to run away from your chains and still get damage down. And then at the end here, don't be afraid to just spam unbuffed Ice Furies to try and do as much insta-cast damage as you can to finish off chains. And you can see it was a decent P1, 5th on the meters, mid 7k range. Obviously, Venthyr Boomies in Heroic, they're just spread AoE that they can do with Starfall is unrivaled. Can definitely do better than what I did in this poll here. Like I said, it comes down to lining up the Stormkeepers better in P1, and that's something that I didn't really do on this poll. Now, I went ahead and skipped the intermission and the first bit of running across the platform. Obviously, use Ghost Wolf, don't get hit by waves. If you do, Healing Surge yourself up, and you're going to be good to go. When you're waiting here before the first boss burn, you want to stack up your Maelstrom, go into the first boss burn with 100 Maelstrom, and if you can, if it lines up, it's a little bit RNG, but stack up your Chaos Bane stack so that you proc Chaos Bane in this boss burn for maximum damage. Depending on the length of your P1, you may have pot here. If so, you're going to send it. But other than that, you just pop everything, your Fire Rally, both your Stormkeeper and your Fey Transfusion, and just buff as much stuff as you can in our standard single target rotation with Master of the Elements. And that's pretty much it for this first boss burn. Not a lot of fancy stuff. Drop Windrush Totem for your raid. Help them get out. You obviously don't want to take Veil stacks. You can't parse on a wipe. So outside of that, you're pretty much just chilling here. Get out for the Veil, get back in. And then once she goes immune, you actually want to keep hitting her here. So you see I use my last spender, and then once she goes immune, I just spam a bunch of lightning bolts on her. And this is just to try and build up Maelstrom. Obviously, I'm not doing any damage, but if I have more Maelstrom going into the next platform, I can use that. Once you get across here, Stormkeeper should be coming back up if you used it at the very beginning of the boss burn. And so with Stormkeeper, and you can spam a bunch of Earthquakes here, definitely have great damage potential. You can see I leap up on the meters here into top 3, top 4, off the back of this kind of like AoE burn on these ads. Still target Soul Judge and Goliath so that your raid leader doesn't yell at you, but you're wanting to get Chain Lightning onto everything to really maximize not only your damage, but your first strike procs as more things spawn in. Now you've got some ads here trailing at the end. You can go ahead and blast on those, and then you're looking to get across here nice and early. You get a short kick, so use it if you need to. Get straight onto the summoner, and you want to see if you can have an Earthquake down as these orbs spawn. So he's casting the orb, I instantly drop Earthquake. That's going to help take down those orbs really fast, which not only will your raid leader appreciate that, but you're going to get First Strike, Wild Hunt Stratagem, both procced off that. So that's great for damage. And then as the raid's kind of cleaving down, Goliath and Summoner, you don't really have great 2-target cleave, so you're just kind of AoE blasting in this phase. All these ads here along the side, you want to put damage into them as much as you can, and then you can use Ghost Wolf to really catch up. This platform, another great opportunity to blast as Shaman. You get Master of the Elements buff for your Stormkeeper, and then you Master Elements buff your Earthquake, and then Master Elements buff Earthquake again, and you can really just blast by using your moat buffs on all your spells and then spamming AoE into this pack. And you can look at the meters here. In these 3 AoE ad platforms, we've almost completely caught up to the Boomkins, who had a massive gap over us at the beginning. And this is a phase of the fight where Ellie Shaman can really pump. And I'm running single target talents here, full single target legendary, and still I'd probably come out number 1 damage in P2 here. Boomkins are probably going to get a second ramp here on this boss, but you're going to drop your Fire Rally, all your CDs here, and just blast. That's an opportunity to get damage out, get this on cooldown, because then Fire Rally will be back up for the most common hero spot, which is the second platform in Heroic. Third platform, sorry, in Heroic. And so you're going to have to hold it a little bit, but this will kind of maximize your Fire Rally uses, because you will get a full use here on this. Outside of that, just standard rotation. You want to tag these ads with AoE. You see I pop Stormkeeper here. Now this is very unethical damage and completely useless to the fight, but it's fantastic on the meters. If you spam Chain Lightning into those ads, you can see we built a little bit of extra damage. Got our dot off on Sylvanas when we phased, so you get 1 global in there. And then you're into standard single target rotation here in the end. Main thing you can do, obviously have all your cooldowns and your pot ready for the hero phase on this, and beyond that, it's just trying to move as little as possible. So you want to be pre-spread for all the Veil's standard fight mechanics as much as you can to prevent yourself from having to stop casting using your instant casts whenever you need to dodge pools. Using Spirit Walker's Grace when you need to do a lot of movement, and then using your defensives as necessary to stay alive because you're not parsing if you're dead. And I'm just gonna kind of let the rest of the fight play out here. There's not much else you can do fancy beyond the general LE rotation, and I'll kind of leave you guys to watch the ending of it. But you can see, I think we finish to right around 6.9k DPS. It's one of the top DPS in the raid, only second to Venthyr Boomkin type damage, which is really unmatchable by pretty much any class. What they're able to do in P1 with the chains, Heroic P2 timings line up really well for them. They get 2 ramps on the boss for big damage. So yes, you're not going to be able to match that. No class can. But with this build, you can get pretty solid single target in P3, which means you're doing good boss damage, and using Ellie's kit, you can really maximize your damage in P2. And like I said, check logs in P1 to really line up your Stormkeeper Chain Lightnings for big arrow damage. That'll really help the raid out, just by making it so less of your guildmates or raid mates are dying to getting hit by arrow. If the arrow's dead, they can't run into their arrow. Outside of that, follow standard fight mechanics and do your best to blast. And this is how to do big damage on Heroic Sylvanas as an LE Shaman.